Hello, hello. Here we are in June with our monthly market update, looking at what has happened year to date as things have closed out through the end of May, and just getting you all the information, keeping you informed with what's happening in our local real estate market and nationally, and how those things work together and what that means for us going forward. Almost at the end of second quarter and headed into the last half of the year. So we've got some good information. Dustin with Northpointe Bank is going to be joining us to talk all things interest rates, and we've got some pretty interesting information as it relates to that and where we are in the market and things to consider. But first, let me tell you, June is National Homeownership Month, so there is no better time to be talking all things homeownership than now, which means I'm going to get into our market information, looking at how things have closed out the first 5 months of this year for Muscogee and Harris County, and then for Russel and Lee Counties. So let's jump into that and see what those numbers are looking like. And I've got some interesting information and thoughts on a lot of that. All right, so far for the first 5 months of the year, we have had 1,059 closed sales through the end of May in Muscogee and Harris County. That same time frame last year, it was 1,047. Average days on the market for last year, same time period, and this year is 41 days. I mean, we haven't seen a change in that over last year. So what I want you to keep in mind is, if you're getting your home on the market, we've really got to talk strategy based on your timing, because the idea that your home's going to sell in 2 days, that's just not where the market is. It doesn't mean it's not still happening, and it doesn't mean that you won't have that kind of success, but there's a lot of strategy that we've got to think about if you need a quick sale, because on average, it's 41 days right now. Now, for our team, it's actually lesser of an average than that, but we want to talk total market right now. All right, average sales price for the first 5 months of this year was $263,800. Last year, for that same time frame, it was $243,700, which means we have seen an average increase in sales price over this same time period last year to this year, an increase of 8.24%. So while activity is way down, prices are still rising. Average list to sale price percent, meaning that final list price after any price reductions might have happened within that 41 days on the market, because I'm here to tell you price reductions are a part of what's happening in our market now. Our average list to sale price for the first 5 months of this year was 97.94. So you can see a little negotiation happening. For that same time frame last year, it was 98.73. So, that being said, we've got a little more negotiation that's happening right now. And as an expert in this market who lists a lot of property, and I have a great deal of experience, I can tell you we definitely are seeing more seller negotiation happening, but still really strong outcomes with all of that. There are currently, for Muscogee and Harris County, there are currently 373 active listings, 382 pending sales. This is where things get a little interesting. Same time period last year, from January through the end of May, there were approximately at this same time frame last year, there were approximately 267 active listings. So we have about 39% more homes on the market. Now that sounds like a big number, but that's not really that big of a number, because that's still only 373 active listings right now, which is still extremely low inventory, but we do have a little more inventory on the market than we did this same time last year. Pending sales, this is the one that just, knife to my heart, because this impacts everyone, to include real estate agents, and it hurts bad. This time frame last year, when I was talking to you in June of last year, there were about 685 pending sales. Right now, there are 382. That is a decrease of 44%, a little over 44% from last year to this year. That's painful for us real estate agents for sure, and for home sellers, because there is a little less actual buyer activity. Dustin is going to talk to us about some of that, some real numbers based on the mortgage application side of things right now. So what that tells me is there is a lot of pent-up buyer demand. We have got some buyers sitting on the fence, and we want you to get off the fence. We've got some reasons for that, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Let's move on to Russel and Lee County, looking at the same information. There are currently, or for the first 5 months of the year, there were about 519 closed sales. For the same time frame last year, there were 535. So, not a big difference. That's actually kind of a very marginal difference on both sides of the river. Even in Muscogee and Harris County, there's a very marginal difference in the total number of closed sales from this year to last year. But pending is where it's really going to hit us going into the last half of the year. Average days on the market this time right now, about 37 days in Russell and Lee County. Last year for that same time frame was about 40 days, so not a big difference there. Average sales price for the first 5 months of this year in Russell and Lee County has been $270,600. For the same time frame last year, it was $255,500, which means we've seen an increase in average sales price of about 6%. So 8.25 in Muscogee and Harris County, about 6% in Russell and Lee County. With the average sales price being actually slightly higher on the Alabama side of our market right now. List to sale price percent in Russell and Lee County was on closed sales. What did it list for? What did it sell for after price reductions? 99.1% for this first 5 months of the year. Last year through the end of May, it was 99.3%. So you've got a little less negotiation on price that's happening in Russell and Lee County. So let's look active and pending. Currently, there are about 207 active listings in the East Alabama MLS. And this same time last year, there were about 203. So we don't see a big difference there. There hasn't been a lot of inventory growth. We've had a little more inventory growth on the Georgia side, not quite as much inventory growth on the Alabama side. Pending sales, last year this time, we had about 258 pending sales. This year, we only have about 153, which means a decrease in overall pending sales of 40.7%. Oh, man, it hurts. It hurts. I'm telling you, this is the way markets go. It's nothing I haven't been through as an agent before, but man, this isn't the banner year we wanted it to be. I'll just say that. Again, this illustrates the amount of pent-up buyer demand that we have. Now, before I start going into some other information, I'm bringing in Dustin because this is kind of a joint conversation, talking interest rates. Come on in, Dustin. Let's talk interest rates. Let's talk about how this is impacting and what buyers really need to be thinking about, and even sellers who are sitting on the fence thinking maybe you need to wait for rates to come down before you put your home on the market. There's a lot of information that needs to be considered with all of this. So let's talk rates. This is your wheelhouse. Go for it.
Well, so January was our best month this year. It was. January was when they were the lowest. Now, low doesn't mean they were great, but they were the lowest. They're about a quarter higher now than they were in January. But in comparison to this time last year, regardless of who you called, whether you were doing an FHA loan, a VA loan, a conventional loan, you were going to get a rate in the sevens. You were going to get probably around 7.625 on conventional. VA FHA was going to fall around 7.25. Right now, VA and FHA are at 6.5. Conventional is right up under 7 at 6.99. But those are par rates, without additional fees. Whereas last year, even the things that were in the sevens still had points tacked onto them, whether it was a half a point or a whole point. Closing costs were much higher, but rates are trending in the right direction. Some of that has to do with jobs, unemployment, things like that, inflation, just overall demand because of how expensive everything is has slowed down a little bit. But overall, rates are heading in the right direction, especially when you're looking at where they were 12 months ago.
So that is good news. And really, truly, I know, earlier this year, we've mentioned it before, we were really hopeful rates were going to be coming down by this time, like a little more significantly.
Yeah.
We were hoping maybe we'd be in the fives.
I might have even said crazy things like that
Yeah.
on this video, so don't go back and look.
We're not there. And truly, nobody has a crystal ball, but I can tell you, everything is trending, everything's tracking for us to see some rate improvements in the second half of the year. I was actually talking with an appraiser yesterday, and we were sort of having some of this discussion, and we both were in agreement that we think them really seeing some changes, it's probably going to be closer to November. So maybe late third quarter going into early fourth quarter. We both believe, based on all the information out there, that we're likely to see a little more push towards a downward rate trend as we approach the elections, and then potentially even right after elections as well. So again, no one has a crystal ball, but we're trending in that direction now.
Correct.
and that's good news. So let's dive a little deeper into this topic. I mentioned that buyer activity is way down right now, but also inventory is still way, way low as well. Right. So tell me about buyer activity on the mortgage end.
So on the mortgage side, we have seen, since this time last year, mortgage purchase applications are down 16%, and that's nationally. So that's a really big number. And on the flip side, which is not strange, but I think it may be strange for people to hear it, refinance transactions are up 34%.
And that, honestly, when he told me that, I said, hold on.
Right.
Explain that to me. Because I was like, people are refinancing right now? And he said, yes. Explain why.
Well, when you look at where rates were this time last year, people are refinancing. They may be doing it for a number of reasons. Either they're taking advantage of a lower rate, because I'm sure there are people out there right now that could probably take an entire percentage point off of where they were just 12 months ago. And a lot of them are able to do that because of the equity that they've built in the home since last year due to the appreciation. You may also have people that are paying off debt. So they may be taking some of that equity that they had in that home, refinancing for a rate that is very similar to what they got last year, and taking some of that equity and paying off high balance credit cards, things like that are helping them overall. But yeah, we are seeing an uptick in refi transactions. So
I thought that was really interesting. And it leads me to the thing that we've been telling you all along. The idea that you wait for interest rates to come down to buy is, I'm telling you, it may not be a very wise strategy. And this is why, because we are expecting interest rates to come down. But what I'm going to tell you is, as those rates come down, because we are still very low inventory, it is going to drive home prices up. So you're going to pay, yes, your rate's going to be lower, but your overall purchase price is going to end up being higher.
Right.
So if you buy now, and I'm going to break this down a little more for you, but essentially if you were looking at thinking you're going to buy later, but you bought now, while there is some competitiveness in the market, while homes are on the market at an average of 41 days right now, while we are seeing a little more negotiation from the seller in terms of price, closing costs, things like that. While that's happening in this market at this moment, you can potentially lock into a better overall purchase price. And then when those rates come down, you've got the better purchase price and you refi to the better interest rate.
Right.
Once the rates come down, yeah, you'll be able to lock into a lower rate, but you're going to be locked in at a higher price and possibly be competing for homes again that you might not have to compete for right now at this moment.
Right.
Especially because there's less buyer activity in the market. So I want to kind of dive even deeper into that. So let's talk about the fact that from last year to this year, same time period, average home price has continued to rise, even though interest rates have been as high as they are. Like, just think about
It's
that.
remarkable, really.
In Muscogee and Harris County, the average sales price for the first 5 months of last year versus the first 5 months of this year has increased by 8.24%. In Russell and Lee County, it has increased by 6%, even though interest rates have been at the highest that we've seen in 10 plus years.
A long time.
Longer than 10 years, but regardless.
Yeah.
So just think about, I'm telling you, think about logically what's going to happen when those rates come down and prices are continuing to increase. So here is another level of information. Nationally, it is projected that over the next 5 years, nationally, based on the average sales price for the United States, there will be an increase in equity of about $83,000 on the average sales price. So that means the average sales price in the United States is around $350,000. So that means if you've got an increase over the next 5 years in equity of $83,000, that is, what do we get? 23.7% increase in home value. So let's break that down to our local market, because honestly, the truth is our average sales price in our local market is not $350,000. It's more like, what did we come up with? $267,000 is currently what our average sales price is in Russell, Lee County, Muscogee, Harris County, across all 4 counties. So when you look at that, an increase of 23.7% over the next 5 years is approximately $63,000 in equity over the next 5 years. We're not talking about property values coming down right now. And that's not to say you won't see some value adjustments and decreases in certain segments of the market in this country, and maybe even some small pockets within our community. But overall, we're expecting some pretty hefty increases over the next 5 years. What other investment are you going to make that gains you 23.7% increase in 5 years without super high risk?
You'd be hard pressed to find it.
Yeah.
And I don't know anybody else, but it's really hard for me to just save $63,000 over 5 years. If I just decided to stick that amount of money in a savings account, because life happens, you have to spend it somewhere, or you can't,
Yeah.
But just living there and making your monthly payment, not saving any extra, you potentially could have $63,000 in equity in this home in the next 5 years. You'd be tough to come up with that with any amount of money that you decided to put into something.
And real estate is a safe investment. You're not having, it's not like you're throwing this into some, something on the stock market that's risky and, hey, high risk, high potential reward. Yeah, that's all good. But you can put your money into something that historically has always been a very safe investment. And not only that, when you look at people with some of the largest wealth in our country, it is tied directly to real estate.
It's true.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's something people are always going to need it.
And if it sounds like I'm preaching at you like I'm your mama, I am preaching at you right now. I am your mama of real estate right now. I want you to understand and digest all of this, because if you're just listening to national media, you're not really getting the whole truth of what it's all about. And that's where we spend a lot of time really breaking it down and trying to be the truth tellers in the market, the knowledge brokers for you, so that you're really getting the information that's accurate and making those wise decisions. And sitting on the fence right now as a buyer, I'm not telling everybody they need to go buy. A lot of it depends on your specific circumstance. But I'm telling you, if you're sitting on the on the fence because of interest rates, you may be doing yourself a huge disservice.
Yeah, it's a battle that I feel very confident saying you're going to lose.
Yeah,
you are. It's just, you're just not, the math. When you really look at the math just doesn't math. You are much better off getting into something that you love and refinancing 12 months down the road or 6 months down the road, whatever that is.
Honestly, this even goes for you sellers too. I'm talking to you too. If you're sitting on the fence, not selling because of interest rates, it may not be the wisest thing, especially if you're going to be investing your money when you sell into another property.
Right.
So let's talk about this stuff. Let's talk about your circumstance. It's National Home Ownership Month in June, and it's a great time for us to have some serious conversations about what your specific circumstance is, how that impacts in market, and how that situation determines what you need to do right now and the decisions that you make to move forward. So anything else you want to add to that? I think
you did perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And the last thing she did say, I just think that as far as the sellers, that makes so much sense. You know, you still have great value in your home now. And right now you do have a little bit more leverage on the buying side than you've had in quite a while.
Yeah.
You know, so sitting to wait for rates to fall, you're gonna lose something one way or the other. So if you try to sell when rates are really low, you're probably gonna lose every bit of leverage you had on the purchase side. Right now, you've got great values and more leverage than you've ever had to purchase. So if you want to buy and you can, it may make sense to sell.
Yeah. So, all right. Mama Kim's going to quit preaching for the day. Maybe not. I'll probably continue to preach after this. But anyhow, we hope that you guys find this information valuable. If there is anything that we can do, if you've got any specific questions as it relates to anything mortgage, anything real estate, call us. That's what we're here for. We want to help you work through what your situation is. Dustin, how can they reach you?
Hey, anytime. Call, text, email. I'll put my email in the comments. I won't say it right here because I may butcher it. But my cell phone number is 706-405-6555.
And you know how to reach me, 706-332-6349. You can always stop by our office downtown on 12th Street next to Animal Farm Restaurant. We're here to help. We're here to talk to you all things real estate and help you figure out the best way forward for your specific circumstance. So you guys have a fabulous June, and we will be back in July after 4th of July. We probably won't do anything early in the month. We'll be back after 4th of July, and we'll have all the details on how the first 2 quarters of the year have wrapped up, and hopefully even more great information about interest rates. So until then, yeah, have a good one. See ya.